Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Damage control is underway at the White House after top secret Pentagon papers were published online for all to see. The latest security breach could be the worst in a decade, and it leaks information about intelligence gathering from America's adversaries and also from our allies.
A new report from the Washington Post claims the leaker is a young man who had access to a military base. He posted the material on an online gaming platform. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke has the latest.
This leak includes dozens of secret briefing slides for top officials, along with other highly classified information. In addition to revealing intelligence on our adversaries, there was also intel on our allies. Among the most potentially damaging deals with the war in Ukraine, secrets the Biden administration wanted to keep.
It is not intended for public consumption, and it should not be out there. What we're going to try to do is do the best we can to figure out how this happened.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby admits the White House doesn't know how many more documents are out there. For now, the Justice Department has launched a criminal investigation, and the rest of the administration is on damage control.
I will tell you that we take this very seriously, and we will continue to investigate and turn over every rock until we find the source of this and the extent of it.
We have engaged with allies and partners at high levels over the past days, including to reassure them about our own commitment to safeguarding intelligence and, of course, our commitment to our security partnerships.
The Pentagon expressed concern that some of the leaked intel appears to have been altered, and administration officials have been slow to confirm the validity of the documents.
As these documents circulate online, I would like to highlight that they present a very serious risk to national security and have the potential to spread disinformation.
There's some speculation that Russia is behind the leak. The Kremlin, however, has not taken responsibility, commenting only that it's common to blame Russia for everything.
Russia now has a greater insight into how we collect intelligence against them. And that's, to me, the more concerning thing here.
We're going to get to the bottom of this, and then if there's actions that need to be taken as we learn more about the extent of what happened here, we'll obviously take those.
These leaks represent the most damaging breach of U.S. intelligence in a decade, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are among those demanding answers from the Biden administration. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer requesting Congress be briefed as the investigation continues to unfold. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Well, the bigger question is, how does somebody who's enlisted get access to this kind of intelligence data? You go back in history, there was a corporal who had access to diplomatic cables, the private musings, if you will, of our ambassadors, our Secretary of State, and all of that got published. Now, that individual got convicted and put in jail. But it still seems that there seems to be this broad access in the military to databases. And why in the world would you put that kind of sensitive intelligence into everybody's hands? Because it just multiplies the opportunity for leaks. Well, we'll see how this plays out, but we've absolutely exposed our battlefield capability to gather intelligence about forces on both sides of that battle, and now that's out for the whole world to see. In other news, a federal appeals court ruled the abortion pill can stay on the market with some limitations. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That is right, Gordon. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled to preserve access to the abortion pill mifepristone for now. A three-judge panel put on hold a Texas judge's ruling that invalidated a decades-old FDA approval of the drug. The court said too much time had passed to challenge the initial approval granted in 2000. However, the court did rule that actions taken to increase access to the pill since 2016 can be challenged, including expanding the timeline of use from 7 weeks to 10 weeks and allowing the drug to be sent by mail. The case is likely headed to the Supreme Court. Well, now to Louisville and the latest in the mass shooting there, with newly released 911 recordings of the shooter's mother trying to warn authorities and police body cam video showing their heroic response. Plus, the chaplains on the ground who are now ministering to families. CBN reporter Brody Carter reports.
In the moments before the shooting, the suspect's mother, alerted by her son's roommate, calling 911 to warn them.
My son might be, he apparently has a gun and he's heading toward the Old National at on Main Street here in Louisville. Please, he's non-violent. He's never done anything. Please.
Okay, and you don't believe he owns guns?
I know he doesn't own any guns.
But he had legally purchased a gun just 6 days before. The attack highlighting the horror caused by an active shooter.
God, don't have an angle.
And the courage of those running towards danger.
Suspect down, get the officer.
5 people died and another 8 injured, including a Louisville officer who responded after 25-year-old bank employee Connor Sturgeon started shooting coworkers. In a statement, his family expressing sorrow for the attack and acknowledging he faced mental health challenges that were being addressed.
The heart is wicked, the Bible says. The prophet Jeremiah says the heart is wicked above all who could know it.
Jason Scalzi, a retired police officer, has seen a lifetime of death and destruction. He and his wife now work with the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team, serving in the most difficult circumstances.
When we deploy to these types of situations, our initiative is to provide emotional and spiritual support, to listen to people who are grieving, to weep with those who weep.
Monday's shooting is the 15th mass killing in the U.S. this year, 2 weeks after a former student fatally shot 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian elementary school in Nashville, Tennessee.
1 in 5 parents say they've either pulled their child from a school, changed a child's school, or thought about changing a child's school because of they're worried about gun violence.
That statistic comes from research just released from the Kaiser Family Foundation. Ashley Kurzinger, director of survey methodology, helped lead the nationwide study tracking American experiences with gun-related violence.
We didn't put out the survey because of what happened in Louisville. It's just, unfortunately, it seems like we can't go more than several days in this country without news of a shooting.
Some of those results include 1 in 5 adults have personally witnessed a shooting. 1 in 3 black adults have had a family member killed by a gun. And 84% of adults surveyed have taken at least one precaution to protect themselves or their families from gun violence.
That leads us to more than half of U.S. adults in this country have either personally experienced or had a family member experience an incident with a gun like this.
The bottom line is that this world is broken. It's a sin issue. And we don't get involved with gun control and talking about that. We're just here to point people to Christ, number one, because we know it's a sin issue.
Kurzinger did say the poll uncovered an opportunity for health officials to get more involved in this conversation because data only shows 5% of adults say a doctor or other healthcare provider has ever talked to them about gun safety. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Brody. Well, turning now to some encouraging news in the economy. Consumers are paying less for gas and groceries as inflation continues to slowly ease. Still, though, it's not coming down fast enough for the Federal Reserve, which is expected to raise interest rates at least once more. CBN's Wendy Griffith has details.
March numbers show the rate of inflation slowing, dropping from 6% this time last year to 5% this year, the 9th consecutive month it's fallen. Grocery prices fell for the first time in 2.5 years, down 0.3% from February to March. Beef, milk, fruits, vegetables, and eggs all down. Gas prices also fell 4.6%. Heritage Foundation economist E.J. Antony told CBN's Faith Nation that's a good sign.
It's very, very good that we're seeing, for example, energy prices come down because those energy prices affect literally everything else within the economy.
However, Antony says people's paychecks are still not going as far because incomes aren't going up as fast as inflation, and partly due to higher borrowing costs.
What happens is as prices go up faster than wages, even though you actually have more money in your paycheck, you can buy less. And so that's what we mean when we talk about real wages. Inflation has robbed you of your purchasing power.
Still, prices in the service industry continue to rise. Businesses and consumers are doing the best they can to cope.
I've definitely seen a little bit more price-conscious consumers lately.
Certainly, we cook more at home than we ever have due to the rising costs.
The Fed is expected to continue raising interest rates to bring inflation down, but that's also hurting consumers, and the Fed may take a pause after another hike next month. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
A mixed bag in the economy. Thanks, Wendy. Gordon, back to you.
Well, it's definitely a mixed bag, and what was the absolute cause of the inflation is difficult to really pin down. Is it the low interest rates, because the Federal Reserve keeps raising them and will likely raise them again? Was it supply chain issues related to COVID-19, where whole economies, whole cities in China were shut down as a result of the pandemic? Was it excessive government spending, excessive government stimulus checks being pumped into the economy to prop up consumers and in that create excess demand? I think it's all of the above. And the one thing we're not taming is our government. We are overspending at an incredible rate and increasing our national debt at an incredible rate. And with no end in sight for that. So once again, we're raising the debt ceiling. Once again, we're not passing balanced budgets. All of this is going to impact us for years to come, if not decades to come. So let's get government spending reined in, and then we might be able to rein in inflation.